So Valve just absolutely nuked $2 billion out of existence, and honestly, it might be the funniest thing I've seen all week. We need to talk about how Counter-Strike 2 just experienced what I can only describe as the digital equivalent of the Great Depression, except instead of breadlines, we have a bunch of guys panic selling their virtual knives at 3 a.m. This is genuinely one of the most spectacular market collapses I've ever witnessed in gaming, and I've been around long enough to see some truly remarkable disasters. But this one hits different. Alright, so here's what happened. On October 23rd, Valve dropped an update for Counter-Strike 2. Now normally these updates are pretty standard. Some bug fixes, maybe a new map, perhaps they'll adjust how a smoke grenade works, you know, the usual stuff. But buried in this update was a change so catastrophic that it makes the Hindenburg disaster look like a minor inconvenience. They added the ability to craft knives and gloves. Now, if you don't play Counter-Strike, you might be thinking, okay, cool, you can make knives now, what's the big deal? And that's a completely reasonable response. But in Counter-Strike, knives aren't just knives. They're basically the Lamborghinis of the virtual world. Some of these things sell for thousands of dollars. There are knives in this game worth more than actual cars. Real cars that drive on real roads. Up until this update, the only way to get a knife was to either open cases, which is basically gambling, or buy one from someone else for an obscene amount of money. Knives were rare. They were prestigious. They were the ultimate flex. If you had a nice knife, you were basically royalty in the Counter-Strike community. But now you can just make them. You take 5 red tier weapon skins, throw them into what's called a trade-up contract, and boom, you get a knife or gloves, just like that. Valve looked at this entire economy that players had built over more than a decade and said, you know what would be funny? The market reaction was instantaneous and absolutely brutal. We're talking about a market that was sitting pretty at around $6 billion, yes, billion with a B, and within 24 hours, it crashed to about $4 billion. $2 billion just gone, vanished. Thanos snapped out of existence. Some knives lost up to 70% of their value overnight. There were knives selling for $14,000 that dropped to $7,000 in a matter of hours. That's not a typo. 14,000 actual American dollars for a cosmetic item in a video game, cut in half while people were sleeping. Imagine going to bed thinking you're sitting on a comfortable nest egg of digital knives, and you wake up to find out half of it evaporated because Valve decided to spice things up on a Wednesday. Meanwhile, on the flip side, those red tier covert skins that you needed to craft the knives, their prices went absolutely ballistic. Skins that were worth like $10 suddenly jumped to over 100, some increased by 10 times their original value. There were skins nobody wanted, like genuinely undesirable skins that were basically the equivalent of getting socks for Christmas, and suddenly people were fighting over them like they were golden tickets to Willy Wonka's factory. The P90 Asimov, which was a pretty mid-tier skin, increased tenfold in price. People were panic buying anything red just to get in on the knife crafting action. The Steam marketplace looked like Black Friday, except everyone was trampling each other for digital gun skins. Now, the community reaction to this has been absolutely spectacular to witness. It's like watching two completely different groups of people react to the same event and coming to wildly opposite conclusions. On one side, you have the casual players who are absolutely thrilled. These are the people who have been playing Counter-Strike for years, looking at all these fancy knives they could never afford, and now suddenly they have a path to get one. They're celebrating like Valve just made education free or something. One guy said this update gave him faith that Valve is actually steering in a direction that favors the average player. Wholesome stuff, honestly. But then on the other side, and this is where it gets really interesting, you have the traders and collectors who are experiencing what I can only describe as the 5 stages of grief, except they're speedrunning through all of them simultaneously. These are people who treated Counter-Strike skins like stocks. They had portfolios, they had investment strategies, some of them had thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars tied up in virtual knives. And Valve just pulled the rug out from under all of them without so much as a warning. No announcement, no hey, by the way, we're going to fundamentally alter the economy you've been participating in for over a decade. Just boom, update deployed, good luck. The reactions have been genuinely incredible. Professional players were tweeting things like, skins are over, I am out. Another pro said he liquidated his entire inventory and that his dog won't even look at him anymore. His dog won't look at him because of virtual knife prices. That's the level of despair we're talking about here. One person in the community forums wrote, and I'm not making this up, Valve does not truly understand what they have just done. The ramifications may lead to the death of our beloved game over knives becoming more accessible. That's like saying democracy will collapse because everyone can vote now. It's absolutely wild. Here's what really gets me about this whole situation. This is a perfect example of how how we've created these entirely artificial economies in video games that start to mirror real-world financial systems, complete with speculation, market manipulation, and apparently devastating crashes. Because here's the thing, none of this is real. These are pixels. They're 3D models of knives in a video game. They don't exist in any tangible sense. You can't hold them, you can't use them to cut anything. They provide zero competitive advantage in the game. A default knife works exactly the same as a $20,000 rare pattern knife. The only difference is how it looks. And yet, a $6 billion economy formed around them. People were making actual livings trading these things. There are websites, services, entire businesses built around the Counter-Strike skin market. And Valve just casually decided to change the rules on a random Wednesday. What's even funnier is that Valve has always maintained that skins have no real value. They've said this repeatedly in their terms of service, but everyone just kind of collectively ignored that and decided no, these definitely have value, and built an entire stock market anyway. And now people are shocked that the company who said these have no value treated them like they have no value. The whole situation is like if everyone agreed that Monopoly money was real currency, started using it to buy houses, and then Hasbro released a new edition of Monopoly with different colored money and everyone's life savings became worthless. But you know what? As funny as this whole disaster is, there's actually something kind of important here. This is a legitimate lesson about digital ownership and the risks of treating virtual items as investments. When you buy skins in a game, you're not really buying anything permanent. You're essentially renting pixels from a company that can change the rules whenever they want. You don't own these items in any meaningful legal sense. Valve can do whatever they want with their game, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And that's not me trying to kick people while they're down. I feel bad for the folks who lost money on this. I genuinely do. But this is a wake-up call about the nature of digital goods. The rules can change overnight. The value can evaporate. There's no FDIC insurance for your virtual knife collection. The former head of gaming at YouTube actually had a really good take on this. He said the real issue isn't the supply shock, it's that people lost trust in Valve. Because if Valve can do this now, what stops them from doing something similar in the future? Maybe next time they make all skins free. Maybe they delete certain items entirely. Who knows? The point is, they can and they might. For the casual players, this update is great. It democratizes the cool cosmetics and makes them accessible to people who actually just want to enjoy the game. And honestly, that's probably how it should be. These are decorative items in a video game. They should be fun and accessible, not investment vehicles. For the traders and collectors, this is a harsh reminder that you're playing in someone else's sandbox and they can knock over your sandcastle whenever they feel like it. The Counter-Strike skin market will probably recover to some degree. Markets tend to stabilize eventually, but it's never going to be quite the same. The illusion of security is broken. Everyone now knows that Valve is willing to make massive changes without warning, and that's going to affect how people approach the market going forward. $2 billion gone in 24 hours over virtual knives. It's simultaneously hilarious and kind of sad, but mostly hilarious. This is the kind of story that perfectly captures how bizarre gaming culture has become in 2025. We've got people experiencing genuine financial crises over whether they can turn 5 red gun skins into a butterfly knife. What a time to be alive! That's about it. See ya.